Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more.
Yeah, but you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those are being erased.
I'm gonna be real with you. Power would be a terrible president. Actually, no. Unironically, I would vote a pedophile into office before I even thinking about letting power anywhere near the White House. Like what? Like if you've watched or read Chainsaw Man, you would understand where I'm coming from. Hell, you'd even agree. And if you unironically believe that Vegeta would make a good president, like, I need whatever you're smoking. Vegeta pre-Super was a red pill podcaster's wet dream. But anyway, I believe white supremacists have an insecurity problem. Bold claim, I know. But as I scroll through a lot of racist shit I see on the internet, I've noticed that the root of a lot of pro-right racism rhetoric, it just boils down to some form of insecurity. You especially notice this when you hear them complain about birth rates, the Great Replacement, and immigration, which I never really understood why so many people cared about immigration like so passionately, because majority of the time immigrants are just going to assimilate within a generation or two, essentially making the whole invasion thing, you know, kind of pointless. But I don't know, maybe I'm just too autistic to understand, but it's really hard to like not see like anti-immigration shit as just closeted racism, like as an outsider looking in. Like, why do we care about this again? Why? Like, to paraphrase Dr. Manhattan and Silver Surfer, there's a large universe to explore, endless possibilities for humanity, yet we choose to fight over who gets to stand on dirt. Like, that sums up humanity in a nutshell. But anyway, meet the whining white man. I don't know, I saw this meme and I thought it was funny. I'm pretty sure if you look at areas where white supremacists are the most prominent, you can tie it back to some level of insecurity. Like dating. Incels and people bitching about the male loneliness epidemic, let's be honest, is mostly white people. Let me shamefully introduce you to this channel called Homath that demonstrates what I mean perfectly.
Are the modern woman, and you have an urge you can't quite put into words. You let the urge run through you. You ask it what it wants. It wants to play peekaboo games, but there is no baby here. You have aborted all of your babies and ghosted all of the men who might have proposed to you because you are the modern woman. You take out your phone. Who is here? Who can I find in the phone to play peekaboo? What do they want to hear? You are the modern woman, so your mind floods with feelings of victimization. Women are victims. Minorities, 93% of the global population, are victims. The phone wants to hear about how much you love victims. And it wants to hear this as if it's the baby you refused to have.
This nigga had an entire temper tantrum and disguised it as a pristine analysis about women in society, and somehow managed to make it about minorities.
There was to a stick. The bear walks back and forth because that's the only place there is to walk. And awfuls, affluent white female urban liberals, lecture us like we're babies because we're the only thing in their lives they're allowed to talk down to. Modern women grew up surrounded by images of pathetic men who need to be corrected by the women in their lives, and then they went out into the real world and found that white men were at the bottom of the status hierarchy for some reason. The reason remains a spooky mystery. And just like a beaver is identifying things that you can carry, women are identifying things that deserve. For example, this guy does not need to be spoken to like a special needs child, but some of these guys might, and probably everyone from here down.
I also wanted to focus on this part, white men being at the bottom, while implying that minorities are the most desirable for women, as according to their worldview. Like, after hearing that, I immediately thought of this meme, because, you know, for some reason, racists are obsessed with interracial NTR, which, by the way, why is so much NTR interracial? And why is the bull always some black dude? I had to look up terminology in order to articulate my question effectively. I hate that this is in my search engine now. Also, can you imagine if we just started judging people based off their goon material? Like, I'm gonna try to guess your personality based off of what you goon to. I goon to a mirror because I like to practice self-love. Or I'm just a narcissist. One of the two. I'm fine with either. Anyway, here's my attempt to explain this mentality. My explanation is that through an incel's worldview, they view hypermasculinity as a universally desired trait amongst women. Black people are stereotypically viewed as masculine, hypersexual amongst being gifted, which leads to envy and insecurity towards black people in the context of the dating market. That's how you got the whole Tyrone meme thingy.
Have you ever been with insecure white guys that got insecure with you dating black guys?
Yeah, they get insecure sometimes because black guys, like, their size is usually bigger and they're just, like, overall better. Their hair, everything.
And what do you have to say to those white guys?
What I'd say is get bigger, get more confident, and you want us to compete with me.
Or a lot of racists are just gay. Like you'd be surprised how often the latter occurs. Now I'm just thinking of that one Panky clip.
I remember I told Panky I was straight, then they converted me, and now I like BBC. Where the f is the correlation?
Black History Month, we see it as a symbol of our achievement in history. White people see it as injustice because they feel left out and demonized by a past they had no control over. And that creates more insecurities amongst racists because they believe acknowledging one thing diminishes the other. That's why a lot of them get offended by the term pro-black, because they believe being pro-black is anti-white because being pro-white has always been anti-black. Replacement theory, aka demographic anxiety, which is basically feeling threatened when a shift in population occurs. This insecurity comes from two places. One, it's an ego thing.
Is America, in the next 20 years, will become for the first time in its history, a minority white country.
Well, that will be a very, very bad thing to happen. You want to see the US go down? Why? Oh, you don't like cars and electric cars, and you don't like technology, or what is it? Do you want to go back to the jungle, or?
Two, it's a fear of losing power and value, which creates more insecurities and fear because they're forced to adapt to a new environment where their social norms aren't the standard. Nerd culture, they're forced to share their power fantasies with others because they view fiction as a way to escape their own mediocrity.
The only time I see the general public caring about historical accuracy in medieval or fantasy media is when it's an excuse to be racist.
Because the real fantasy is having no black people. Obviously, that's not how all fantasy fans feel, but there's a large number of Renaissance Fair attendees and D&D parties that are huge fantasy fans because they can get rid of black people on demand. They just take the stuff black people had to experience in reality and turn it into the backstory for a fictional species. And ironically, some fantasy readers and video game players care more about racism when it's fictional than when it happens to actual people.
Which I believe sums it up. It's the failure to adapt to a similar playing field. Like, I remember one video where a guy mentioned that the reason we see a bunch of these losers bitching about DEI, black fatigue, and feminism is because they're the first generation that actually has to compete to a similar playing field. As the shackles start to loosen, diversity increases, women have more options, and other groups have less obstacles, it means you actually have to try in the market of dating, employment, and creativity. Because you are basically racing a guy with an injured leg and called it unfair when that leg began to heal. Like, you can't treat your own women like shit and complain about them not wanting to date you and then bitch about your birth rates decreasing. You can't ask, what did black people do to contribute to society, when you haven't done shit either, and you claim to be superior as you play Valorant on a dirty keyboard, despite being the literal baseline. Which, by the way, that's what people mean by privilege, like, it's meeting the social standard. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, white supremacists, if you truly believe that minorities and women are of lesser capability than you, then you shouldn't be struggling this hard to do the bare minimum. Like, we're essentially giving you a chance to earn that title of superior, but the second you get the opportunity, y'all decide to bitch and moan. Anyway, that's all I want to talk about. Bye. Anyway, though, yeah, like I was about to say, like, realistically, Freeman would be racist IRL. Like, let's be honest. Like, you're telling me that a 1,000-year-old elf wouldn't have owned slaves like in America back then?
I don't really understand white supremacy. Like, how are you superior to me? Like, my nigga, you're a
shift lead in Popeyes.
Like, you really a nigga for real. I hate to make this comparison, but like, racists back in the day just had way more going for them. These dudes back in the day had academic merit, they were moderately financially stable, they owned properties, they had businesses. And on the surface level, they looked like upstanding people.
They were just really fucking racist.
Now flash forward to 2026, and the modern white supremacist is a 30-year-old morbidly obese goon maxer who hates women, gets all his takes from Twitter, and calls black teenagers the N-word on fucking Monkey. Like, what happened? That is apocalyptic levels of aura loss.